The Orion's rest space station usually hummed with its own busy life. But the day the refugee shuttle docked, the whole place went quiet, like someone pressed mute on the universe. People stopped walking in the metal corridors. Tools clattered, forgotten onto workbenches. Heads turned, eyes wide, as the shuttle hatch hissed open. A figure stepped out. She was very tall, too tall for the low ceilings. Her skin wasn't skin like humans knew. It was soft silver, like moonlight on water. And it shimmered, not shiny like metal, but like it held tiny stars inside, catching the station's bright lights and throwing them back in gentle ripples. Her eyes were huge, round, and deep, deep violet, the color of a twilight sky just before true dark. They looked tired, very tired. 4 long, slender fingers, ending in delicate points, gripped the strap of a worn duffel bag. Her bare feet, with 3 long toes each, made soft, silent thuds on the cold metal floor. And on top of her head, 2 feathery feelers, like soft ferns, drooped down, almost touching her shoulders. Everyone knew those were antennae. Doctors said they showed how she felt. This was Lyra, a Xylani, a refugee. Her world was gone, burned up in a war humans only read about in cold reports. She had lost everything, her home, her family. Even her voice was broken, damaged escaping the fire. Now she stood alone on the station, the only one of her kind for light years. People stared, openly, rudely. Whispers snaked through the crowd like cold wind. Whoa, is that real? Looks like a nightmare. A group of kids peeked from behind. A maintenance cart, pointing and giggling nervously, then ducking away fast. A cook dropped a tray of food tubes with a loud clatter, not even bending to pick them up, just staring. Lyra felt every single look, like tiny needles pricking her silver skin. She kept her head down, her long neck bent. Her antennae drooped even lower, curling inward slightly. It was how her people showed fear, how they showed they felt small and wrong. She moved slowly towards the assigned crew area, her bag heavy on her shoulder. Her big violet eyes scanned the floor, avoiding the faces. Her fingers trembled slightly on the strap. She heard the whispers grow louder as she passed. Alien freak? Hope she doesn't touch anything. One man actually stepped back, bumping into a wall, his face pale. Lyra's breath hitched. She felt hot, even in the station's cool air. Tears wanted to come, but Xylani tears were different, slow and clear, and she wouldn't let them fall here. Not where they could see, not where they could say, see. It cries like a monster. Then, she saw him. He stood near the hydroponics bay entrance, not staring, not whispering, just waiting. He was human, average height, with kind eyes, and a .com face. His name tag said Elias. He wore the simple green uniform of the station's plant keepers. He didn't flinch when she approached, didn't look away. He just watched her, his gaze steady, not cold, but warm. Curious, maybe. Not scary curious. The kind that sees you. Lyra stopped a few feet away. Her antennae twitched nervously. She fumbled with the small, slightly battered device clipped to her collar. It clicked and hummed softly. A moment later, a gentle, synthesized voice came out, calm but thin, like a whisper through water. Lyra, Xylani, hydroponics assignment. Elias didn't jump at the sound. He didn't look startled. He just nodded slowly, a small, real smile spreading across his face. It reached his eyes, making them crinkle at the corners. He didn't offer a handshake. Humans knew Xylani found sudden touch frightening. Instead, he gave a small, respectful, "Oh," the kind you'd give someone important. "Welcome," he said. His voice was low, calm, like the murmur of water over stones. Simple words, no fuss. "I'm Elias. I grow things." He gestured towards the hydroponics bay behind him, where green leaves and strange alien blooms glowed under soft lights. The air there smelled clean, like earth and life. You'll fit right in. That was it. Just that. You'll fit right in. Lyra stood frozen. The whispers from the crowd still buzzed behind her. The stare still burned. But in that moment, facing Elias, the noise faded. His words weren't loud, but they landed deep inside her, heavy and warm. Fit in. 2 words she hadn't let herself hope for. 2 words that felt impossible. Yet he said them like it was as simple as breathing. She looked at him, really looked. Past the human face, she saw the quiet strength in his posture, the lack of fear in his eyes. He saw her, not just the silver skin, the violet eyes, the drooping antennae. He saw Lyra, the one who grew things, the one who was here. Her own eyes, wide and deep purple, filled slowly. 2 large, clear tears welled up, tracing slow paths down her shimmering cheeks. She didn't wipe them away. She couldn't. The tears weren't just sadness. They were a dam breaking inside her, a release of the crushing weight she'd carried since stepping off that shuttle. The weight of being seen as wrong, as other. She tried to speak through the translator again. Her fingers brushed the device, but only a soft, choked sound came out, a sound like wind through reeds. She swallowed hard, the movement visible in her slender neck. Then, slowly, deliberately, she lifted her head, just a little. Her drooping antennae lifted too, just a fraction, like fragile wings testing the air for the first time. It was the Xylani sign for deep, wordless thanks. For hope, fragile as a new sprout. Elias saw it. He saw the tears. He saw the tiny lift of her antennae. He didn't say anything else. He just nodded again, his smile softening, understanding everything without a single word. He stepped aside, holding the hydroponics bay door open. The warm green light from inside spilled out onto the cold metal floor, forming a bridge. Lyra took a shaky breath. The station's noise was still there, the stairs still sharp. But for the first time since her world ended, she felt a single, fragile thread of belonging. She stepped forward, into the warm light, towards the man who grew things. And for the first time, she dared to believe she might grow there too. The hydroponics bay became Lyra's island. Inside its warm green glow, surrounded by whispering leaves and the soft drip of water, she felt almost safe. Here, her long silver fingers knew exactly how to cradle a fragile moon orchid shoot, how to soothe stressed root systems with a touch that made them pulse brighter. Plants didn't stare. They didn't flinch. They just grew, reaching toward her like children toward a mother. But outside the bay's misty doors, the station felt like a cage. Every corridor was a battlefield. Walking to the mess hall for her nutrient paste, Lyra kept her eyes locked on the floor. She saw the scuffed boots of crewmates stop mid-stride, heard conversations die like snuffed candles, felt the weight of dozens of eyes crawling over her silver skin. Her too tall frame, the delicate antennae now permanently drooped, close to her skull. She'd started wearing a heavy, dark coat buttoned all the way up, even in the station's warmest zones. It hid her shape, muffled her movements, made her feel smaller, invisible. One afternoon, carrying a tray of seedlings, she turned a corner and nearly bumped into a group of engineers. They froze. One dropped his wrench. It clanged loudly on the metal floor, making Lyra jump. The man didn't pick it up. He just stared, his face tight with something like fear. "Sorry," he stammered, shuffling away fast. His friends followed, casting nervous glances back. Lyra stood frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. The seedlings trembled in her hands. Monster, she thought they saw. Freak. The word echoed in her silent mind, louder than any whisper. The mess hall was the worst. That day the room buzzed with its usual clatter of trays and chatter. Lyra slipped in, head down, coat pulled tight. She moved quickly toward the quietest corner table, hoping to vanish. But near the drink dispensers, a young human boy, maybe 6 years old, pointed at her, and tugged his mother's sleeve. "Mummy, look, the shiny lady." His voice, bright and curious, cut through the noise. The room didn't go silent. It shifted. Conversations hushed just enough. Heads turned subtly. Forks paused mid-bite. Lyra felt the heat rise in her cheeks, a strange burning beneath her silver skin. She kept walking, but her steps felt heavy, like wading through thick mud. As she passed a table, a crewman jerked his arm back too fast. His tray of orange nutrient paste tipped. It crashed to the floor with a wet slap, splattering her boots and the hem of her coat. Clumsy alien. Someone muttered, just loud enough. Lyra didn't look up. She couldn't. Her throat closed tight. The spilled paste looked like blood against the floor. She stood there, rooted, while the crewman mumbled, "Sorry," and a cleaner bought word over to mop it up. No one met her eyes. No one offered help. The boy who'd pointed now hid behind his mother's leg, peeking out with wide, frightened eyes. Lyra turned and walked out. She didn't eat. She didn't return to the hydroponics bay. Instead, she climbed the narrow service ladder to observation. Deck 7, a quiet spot, few used, where the only sound was the soft hum of the station's heart and the vast, silent view of space. She sank onto a cold bench, her back to the curved window. Her hands, usually so steady with plants, shook in her lap. She unclipped the translator from her collar. The small device felt cold, heavy, useless, she thought. Like me. She stared at her reflection in its dark screen, the two big violet eyes, the drooping antennae, the silver skin that made her stand out like a star in a dark room. Why couldn't she be normal? Why couldn't she look like them? Just fit. Tears welled against low, clear drops that traced paths down her face. She didn't wipe them away. What was the point? Out here, alone, she could be broken. She could be herself. The quiet sobs came then, silent and deep, shaking her thin frame. She pulled her knees to her chest, wrapping her arms around them, making herself as small as possible. The coat felt like a prison. She didn't hear him approach. Elias sat down, beside her, not too close. He didn't say anything, just sat there, his presence calm like the still water in the hydroponics tanks. He followed her gaze out the window, where Earth hung like a blue jewel against the black velvet of space, so beautiful, so far away. After a long moment, he spoke, his voice low and gentle. "You okay?" Lyra didn't move, didn't look at him. Her fingers tightened on her knees. Slowly, she reached for the translator clipped to her coat. She pressed the button. The soft, synthesized voice filled the quiet space. "Do I frighten you?" Elias turned to her. His eyes weren't pitying. They were steady, kind. "What? No." He shook his head. A small, firm movement. "Of course not." "Then why?" Her voice through the device was thin, fragile. "Why do they look at me? Like I am not real. Like I am a thing to be afraid of." She finally turned her head, her violet eyes searching his face. There were no tears now, just a deep, tired sadness. "I only want to work, to help, to belong." Elias was quiet for a moment. He looked out at Earth again, as if the answer was written in its swirling clouds. "People," he said slowly, "fear what they don't understand." He met her gaze. "They see your skin, your eyes. They don't see you. They don't know about the way you make the moon orchids bloom faster, just by humming. Or how you stayed up all night fixing the nutrient mix for the star ferns because you knew they were sick." He paused. "They don't know you." Lyra's antennae twitched slightly, a tiny movement, almost hopeful. "How do you know me?" she whispered. "Because I watch," Elias said simply. "I see how you care for the plants, how you try, how you sit alone in the corner because you don't want to scare anyone." He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. "You're not a monster, Lyra. You're just different. And different is hard for people. Until they learn. A single tear, escaped Lyra's eye again, catching the starlight. She looked down at her hands, silver long-fingered, hers. "I feel so alone," she admitted, the words barely a breath through the translator. "Like I am standing on the wrong side of glass, watching everyone live, while I am just here." Elias didn't offer empty promises. He didn't say it'll get better. Instead, he placed a hand gently on the bench between them, not touching her, but close enough to feel the warmth. "Then let them get to know you," he said. "Little by little, start here, with me." He held her gaze, his eyes steady, unwavering. In that look, Lyra didn't see fear. She didn't see disgust. She saw recognition, like he finally saw the person behind the silver skin, the violet eyes, the drooping antennae. For the first time since stepping off that shuttle, the crushing weight on her chest loosened, just a little. "I want to," she whispered. "I want to belong." Elias smiled, a small, true smile that lit up his tired eyes. "Then you already are." The station's calm shattered like glass. A deep boom echoed through Sector D, followed by the sharp, panicked wail of emergency sirens. Red lights strobed, painting the corridors in pulses of blood. Alarms crackled over the speakers. "Coolant leak in Sector D, toxic vapor detected. Evacuate immediately." Chaos exploded. Crewmates sprinted past Lyra in the hydroponics bay, shouting, shoving, eyes wide with fear. Elias grabbed her arm, his voice tight. "We need to go now." He pulled her toward the emergency exits. The warm green light of the plants suddenly feeling like a trap, then cutting through the noise. A sound froze Lyra's blood, a child's scream, high-pitched, terrified. "Mommy, Mommy, don't leave me." Lyra yanked her arm free from Elias. She followed the sound, her long legs eating up the corridor despite the stampede of people rushing away. Around the corner, she saw it. A sealed bulkhead door had slammed shut, trapping a little girl, Mira, the cook's daughter, on the other side. Thick, greenish vapor already curled under the door, filling the small space. Mira was coughing, her small hands beating against the metal, tears streaking her face. "Help, please." Security officers arrived, masks on, but the vapor was spreading fast. One yelled into his comm, "Medic, to Sector D. Child trapped behind bulkhead 7. Toxic levels critical." Another tried the manual override. It sparked uselessly. "Stuck. Can't open it from this side." Mira's coughs turned wet, desperate. She slumped against the wall, her small body shaking. The vapor rose like a fog, swallowing her legs. Lyra didn't think. She pushed past the officers. Her Xylani lungs evolved for the thin, oxygen-poor air of her dead homeworld, could handle what would kill a human in minutes. She knew this. She used this with a strength that surprised even her. She ripped the emergency panel off the wall beside the bulkhead. Wires sparked. Her 4 slender fingers flute-whisting, connecting, bypassing safety locks with movements learned from watching human engineers. Click, snap, pull. The heavy door groaned, then slid open just enough to squeeze through. Green vapor billowed out. The officers stumbled back, masks clamped tight. Lyra stepped into the cloud. The air burned her throat, but it was bearable, a sharp sting, not suffocation. She saw Mira, barely conscious now, curled under a console. Lyra scooped her up, wrapping her own long coat around the child's small body. Myra's skin was cold, her breathing shallow. Too late. The thought was a knife in Lyra's chest. She turned back toward the open door. The vapor swirled thicker. The officers shouted, but their voices sounded muffled, distant. Lyra ran. Her silver skin glowed faintly in the emergency lights, her antennae rigid with focus. She felt Mira's tiny arms cling weakly to her neck. "Hold on. Please hold on." Just as her vision blurred at the edges, she burst through the doorway. Strong hands grabbed her. She fell to her knees, coughing, the child still cradled against her chest. Medics rushed forward, taking Mira, shouting numbers. Lyra tried to stand, to follow, but her legs gave out. Darkness swallowed her. She woke to soft beeping and the sterile smell of medbay. Her head pounded. Her throat felt scraped raw. Through blurry eyes, she saw Elias sitting beside her bed, his face lined with worry. "Myra?" Lyra rasped, her voice raw, even through the translator clipped back to her collar. "Is she?" Elias's face broke into a relieved smile. "She's okay. A little oxygen deprived, but she'll be fine. Thanks to you." He leaned closer. "You saved her, Lyra. You ran into the poison for a child you barely knew." Lyra closed her eyes. Relief washed over her, warm and sweet. Mira was safe. But then, the memory hit. Hertha officers' shocked faces, the way people had stared after she'd carried Mira out. Not with gratitude, with fear, with suspicion. She opened her eyes, her violet gaze searching Elias's, her voice through. The translator was barely a whisper. "Did I do wrong?" Elias frowned. "Wrong. You saved a life." "I broke protocols," she insisted, her antennae drooping low again. "I ripped open the panel. I rushed in without orders. They looked at me like I was dangerous, like I was the threat." Her voice cracked. "Maybe I am. Maybe I don't belong here." Elias's expression softened. He didn't reach for her hand, not yet, but his voice was firm. "Sure. Lyra, look at me." He waited until her tired eyes met his. "You saw a child dying. You acted fast, brave, without thinking of yourself." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "That's not dangerous. That's human." Lyra blinked. "I'm not human," she said, the words heavy with old pain. "No," Elias agreed gently. "You're not. But you did something only the best humans ever do." He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "You chose to help. When it was hard, when it was scary, when others hesitated." He touched his own chest. "This caring like that, risking yourself like that, that's what makes someone good. Not the shape of their bones, or the color of their skin." Tears welled in Lyra's eyes against low, clear drops rolling down her silver cheeks. But this time, they weren't just sadness. They were confusion, hope, a crack in the wall she'd built around her heart. "They were afraid of me," she whispered. "And they were wrong," Elias said firmly. "Fear makes people stupid. But you were strong, you were kind, you were heroic." He held her gaze, his eyes unwavering. "Don't ever think saving that little girl was wrong. Don't ever think you are wrong." Lyra looked down at her hands, the hands that had ripped open metal, carried a child through poison, saved a life. Hands that were silver, long-fingered, hers. For the first time, she didn't see them as strange. She saw them as tools of good. "I was scared too," she admitted softly, "but I couldn't leave her." Elias nodded. "That's the point. Courage isn't not being scared, it's being scared, and doing it anyway." He finally reached out, placing his warm human hand gently over her cool silver one. The touch sent a jolt through her, not fear, but connection. "You did what mattered, Lyra. More than protocols. More than rules. You did what mattered." Outside the medbay window, the station hummed back to life. But inside, in that quiet room, something else hummed too, a fragile new understanding. Lyra's antennae lifted, just a fraction, like the first green shoot pushing through frozen ground. She wasn't just the alien anymore. She was the one who ran into the smoke, and that changed everything. Life on Orion's Rest didn't change overnight, but it changed enough. The day Lyra stepped out of medbay, the station felt different, not quiet, not afraid, alive with a new rhythm. As she walked toward the hydroponics Bano coat this time, her silver skin catching the corridor lights, people didn't look away. They nodded. A mechanic gave her a thumbs up. An engineer smiled and said, "Glad you're back, Lyra." Even the cook, Mira's father, stopped her, eyes wet. "Thank you," he whispered, placing a warm hand over his heart. "You saved my world. But The biggest change came from small feet. Myra found her first. The little girl sprinted down the hall, arms wide, and wrapped herself around Lyra's waist. Lyra froze. Humans rarely touched Xylani, but Myra didn't care. She tilted her head back, grinning. "You're my hero," she declared. Every day after, Myra visited the hydroponics bay, bringing drawings, Lyra and me with stars for eyes, the shiny lady who saved me. She'd sit cross-legged on the floor, chattering while Lyra pruned moon orchids, her tiny hands mimicking Lyra's gentle movements. "My mom says you're special," Myra announced one afternoon, holding up a glowing seed pod, like a fairy. Slowly, others followed. Crewmates lingered in the bay, asking about the plants. A botanist from Mars asked Lyra to teach him how she coaxed star ferns to bloom. Kids stopped hiding. They'd press their noses against the bay's misty windows, waving. Lyra started lifting her head. Her antennae, once permanently drooped, began to rise when she laughed, a soft, chiming sound that made the station's AI stutter. Unidentified harmonic frequency. Processing. Beauty detected. Yet, at night, the old ache returned. One evening, Elias found her on observation deck 7 again. Earth hung in the viewport, blue and distant. Lyra sat curled on the bench, arms around her knees, her silver skin pale in the starlight. She didn't turn as he sat beside her. "They smile now," she said through her translator, her voice quiet as dust. "They call me hero, but when I pass them in the halls, I still feel like a ghost, like I'm made of glass. They see through me, not at me." She traced a finger over her shimmering forearm. "I look at my hands, these hands that saved my Rand. I wonder, do they see a savior, or just something strange?" Elias didn't rush to fix it. He just sat with her silence, watching Earth's clouds swirl. "You know," he said finally, "back on Earth, we used to think only humans could feel things deeply. Love, grief, courage." He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the planet's soft glow. "We were wrong. The universe is full of hearts that beat the same way, maybe even harder." He pointed to her chest. "You carry 2 worlds in here. Your lost home, and this one. That doesn't make you less. It makes you more." Lyra's breath hitched. "More what?" "More human," Elias said simply. "Not in body, in spirit." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "When you ran into that smoke for Myra, that wasn't alien. That was the most human thing I've ever seen, because humans try, even when they're scared, even when they feel alone." He touched his own chest. "This caring when it hurts. That's the real definition, and you're overflowing with it." Tears welled in Lyra's violet eyes, slow and clear, but she didn't hide them. She let them fall, tracing paths down her silver cheeks. "I still feel unanchored," she admitted. "Like I don't belong anywhere." Elias shook his head. "You belong here, right now, with Myra waiting for your drawings, with the star ferns leaning toward your voice, with me." He held her gaze, steady and warm. "You're not just allowed to be here, Lyra. You're needed, because you remind us what we forgot. That kindness has no shape, no color, no species." He reached out, not touching her, but placing his palm flat against the cool viewport glass. "See this?" he said. "Earth, home to billions of humans, all different, tall, short, dark skin, light skin, some who walk, some who roll, some who speak, some who sign." He looked at her, and all of them human, because they love, they hurt, they try. He turned his palm toward her. "You do all those things, too. So who gets to decide what human means? Fear, or this?" He tapped his chest again. "The heart doesn't care about skin, only what's inside." Lyra stared at his hand, then at her own silver fingers. For the first time, she didn't see strangeness. She saw herself, the hands that healed plants, that carried a child through poison, that held Mira's tiny drawings. "You see me?" she whispered, the words trembling through the translator. "Not the silver, not the antennae. Me. That's because you're here," Elias said gently. "Finally. And you're real." A soft breeze from the station's vents stirred Lyra's feathery antennae. Slowly, deliberately, she lifted them high like wings, catching the wind. It was the Xylani sign for understanding, for peace, I feel. "Seen," she breathed. Elias smiled, his eyes glistening. "Then you're home." The next morning, Lyra walked to the mess hall without her coat. She didn't hunch her shoulders, didn't stare at the floor. When a child pointed and whispered, "It's the shiny lady," Lyra did something new. She stopped. She knelt to the little girl's level, her violet eyes kind. From her pocket, she pulled a seed, pod small, glowing. Blue, she placed it gently in the child's palm. It pulsed like a heartbeat. The girl gasped. "It's warm." Lyra touched her own chest, then the girl's heart. Her translator chimed softly. "Like yours." The girl beamed. "Can I keep it?" Lyra nodded. As she stood, she saw the mess hall watching, not with fear, with wonder. A cook waved, an engineer gave a thumbs up. Even the man who'd dropped his wrench months ago smiled shyly. Lyra walked to her table, head high. The seed pod's light glowed in the corner, a tiny star on a child's tray. She wasn't invisible anymore. She wasn't glass. She was Lyra, and for the first time, that felt like enough. The station's anniversary festival buzzed with life. Colorful banners hung in the main hall. Strange music filled the air, human drums, Veln chimes, the deep hum of Earthian throat singing. Tables overflowed with food, steaming earth noodles, glowing Xylani fruit, crunchy insect cakes from Mars. Everyone shared. Everyone belonged. Everyone except Lyra. She stood near the back, watching children dance under floating lanterns. Mira tugged her hand. "Come on, Lyra. You have to show them your thing." The girl held up a crayon drawing. "Lyra's magic garden." Lyra shook her head. Her antennae drooped low. "I have nothing to give," she whispered through her translator. Music. No food. Just me. And they already see too much." She remembered the stairs, the dropped wrench, the spilled nutrient paste. What if she ruined this? What if she scared them all again? Elias found her hiding near a potted stern. "You're avoiding the party," he said, not unkindly. "I don't fit," Lyra admitted, tracing the fern's glowing leaves. "My world is gone. What can I offer that isn't strange?" Elias gently took her silver hand. "You offer you," he said. "The thing that makes you feel strange. That's your gift. Show them." He pointed to the empty center of the hall. "That space is waiting for your story." Lyra looked at the empty spot. Her heart hammered. Too big, too exposed. But then Mira ran up, shoving her drawing into Lyra's hand. "Please," the girl begged, eyes wide. "I told everyone you'd make the prettiest garden." Lyra's breath caught. "For Mira," she nodded. Later in the hydroponics bay, Lyra worked with shaking hands. From her hidden stasha, small pouch sewn inside her coat, she pulled 5 seeds, tiny, hard, and dark as space. Xylani tear seeds, her grandmother's last gift. "Plant these with heart," the old woman had whispered, "and they'll grow. What your soul needs to say." Lyra placed them in nutrient gel under soft lights. She hummed a low, wordless tune, her people's soil song. The seeds trembled, cracked. Tiny roots glowing faint blue reached for her fingers. She shaped them carefully, guiding the vines to twist and climb a simple frame. Hours passed. Sweat beaded on her silver skin. Her antennae twitched with focus. By evening, it was ready. The main hall fell silent as Lyra carried her creation inside. Gasps rippled through the crowd. It was a tree, but not of wood, of living light. The vines glowed with soft, pulsing blues and silvers, forming roots shaped like gentle hands reaching upward. Branches arched like open arms. Tiny leaves shimmered, like captured starlight. As Lyra placed it on the central pedestal, the whole hall bathed in its gentle radiance. A child touched a leaf, it chimed like a glass bell. The sound spread through the room, warm and hopeful. People gathered close. Humans, Earthians, Velnol, bathed in the same soft glow. A Mars colonist whispered, "It's breathing." Lyra stood before it, heart pounding. This was her voice, her home, her heart made visible. But it wasn't enough. She needed them to hear her too. She unclipped the translator from her collar, let it drop to the floor with a soft clink. Silence deepened. Everyone watched, waiting. Lyra closed her eyes, took a slow breath, and sang. Her voice wasn't through the translator. It wasn't human. It rose from deep in her chest, sound like wind through crystal caves, like stars humming in the dark. High and clear, then low and rumbling, weaving through the air like liquid light. It was a Xylani lullaby, older than cities, sung to soothe newborns under twin moons. A song for when the world feels too big, too cold. You are not alone. You are loved. The first note hung in the air, then the second. Tears streamed down Myra's face. An old engineer wiped his eyes. Even the station's AI fell silent, processing the impossible sound. Lyra sang of loss, her dead world, her broken voice. She sang of fear, walking corridors alone, feeling like glass. Then the melody shifted, warmer, stronger. She sang of Earth seen through a viewport. Of a kind man who said, "You'll fit right in." Of a child's hand in hers. Of roots finding soil again when the last note faded. The hall didn't erupt in cheers. It held its breath. For 10 long seconds, there was only the soft pulse of the glowing tree and the sound of quiet weeping. Then, as one, the crowd moved. Humans placed hands over their hearts. Earthians bowed their many eyes. A Velnelder floated forward and gently touched Lyra's arm, a rare gesture of deep respect. No words, just understanding. Elias stood at the front, tears cutting paths through the dust on his cheeks. He met Lyra's violet eyes and gave a single, slow nod. "I see you." Then the station's speakers crackled, not with an alert, with the AI's voice, soft as a sigh. Beauty recognized. Humanity expanded. Later, alone with Elias in the quiet hall, Lyra touched a still glowing vine. Her voice was raw, real. "They didn't run," she whispered in amazement. "They stayed. Because you gave them truth," Elias said. "Not a performance. You." He gestured to the tree. It's not just plants. It's your heart and hearts. They speak every language." Lyra looked at her hands, the hands that grew this light, that saved a child, that now trembled with something new. Not fear, belonging. "I thought my voice was broken," she breathed. "But it was just waiting." "For what?" Elias asked gently. "For this," she said, touching the glowing tree. "For home." Outside the viewport, Earth turned slowly in the black. But here, under the pulse of alien light, surrounded by the quiet hum of 100 species breathing together, Orion's rest felt like the center of the universe. Lyra finally understood. Home wasn't a planet. It was the space between hearts, and for the first time, hers wasn't empty anymore. Sunlight from the hydroponics bay's artificial suns fell in warm pools across the soil. Lyra knelt beside a young moon orchid, her silver fingers gently guiding its glowing roots into fresh nutrient gel. The plant leaned into her touch, its pale blue petals opening wider. Around her, the bay hummed with life-dripping water, rustling leaves, the soft chirps of symbiotic insects. It was peace. It was home. But a quiet ache still lived in her chest. Elias worked nearby, pruning starf. He didn't speak, just moved with calm purpose, his presence as steady as the station's heartbeat. Lyra watched him, his careful hands, the way his eyes softened when he looked at a thriving seedling. He'd been her anchor since that first day. Why? She finished with the orchid and sat back on her heels. Her antennae, now usually held high like delicate silver ferns, dipped slightly. She'd stopped wearing the heavy coat months ago. Her silver skin caught the light freely. Yet sometimes, in the quiet moments, the old fear whispered, "You are still different, still alone," Elias noticed. He always did. He wiped his hands on his green apron and sat beside her on the soft soil. Not too close, just close enough. "You have a question," Lyra said through her translator. Her voice was soft, almost shy. Elias smiled. "How'd you know?" "Your eyes," she replied, touching her own violet irises. "They get still, like before a storm." She looked down at her hands, tracing the shimmering lines on her palms. "You've never asked me about my world, or why I came here. You just saw me." She paused, the words heavy. "Why were you never afraid of me?" The question hung in the warm, green air. Elias didn't answer right away. He picked up a fallen moon orchid petal, its edges glowing faintly. "Afraid," he finally said, his voice low. "No, never." He turned the petal in his fingers. "When you stepped off that shuttle, I didn't see silver skin or tall legs. I saw someone who'd lost everything. Someone carrying a duffel bag like it was the last piece of home." He met her gaze, his eyes clear and steady. "I saw you. Not what you looked like, who you were." Lyra's breath caught, but the others stared. They flinched. "Because they didn't look past the surface," Elias said gently. "They saw the unfamiliar and called it scary. But fear is just not knowing." He leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I knew you the moment you walked in, not your name, not your story, but I knew your heart. It was in the way you held your bag like it was precious, in the way you looked at the floor, not because you were weak, but because you were tired of being seen as a threat." He placed the moon petal in her palm. Its light pulsed softly against her silver skin. "You were kind before you said a word, before you saved Mira, before you grew this garden." He swept a hand around the bay, where vines glowed and flowers chimed. "Your kindness wasn't because you're Xylani, it was you." Tears welled in Lyra's eyes, slow, clear drops rolling down her cheeks. Not sad tears, tears of something cracking open inside her. "I thought my shape made me wrong," she whispered. "That my skin, my eyes, they kept me from belonging." Elias shook his head. "Belonging isn't about matching. It's about mattering." He touched his own chest, then hers just above her heart. This is where we're all the same. Human, Xylani, Earthian. It's not the shape of your body that makes you human." His voice grew firmer, warmer. "It's the shape of your soul, and yours. It's the kindest, bravest soul I've ever known." Lyra stared at him. In his eyes, she didn't see the alien. She saw recognition, respect, love, in the quiet way humans gave it without words, just presence. She thought of Mira's drawings, the seed pod in the child's hand, the festivals, glowing tree. She thought of the cook's wet eyes, the engineer's thumbs up. They hadn't just accepted her, they'd needed her. "Do I belong here?" The question was a fragile thread in the air. Elias didn't hesitate. "You don't just belong, Lyra." He placed his warm human hand over her cool silver one. The touch sent a wave of warmth up her arm. "You built this place. You reminded us what we forgot." He looked around the hydroponics bathe of thriving plants, the soft light, the quiet hum of life. "Before you came, this was just a room of dirt and wires. Now it's a sanctuary, because you are here." His eyes glistened. "You didn't just find a home, you made one, for all of us." A sob escaped Lyra's soft chiming, like wind through crystal. She didn't hide it. She let it rise, let the tears fall. For the first time, the weight in her chest didn't feel like loneliness. It felt like fullness, like roots finally reaching deep into good soil. Thank you, she breathed, her voice trembling through the translator. For seeing me. For never looking away. Elias smiled, tears cutting paths through the dust on his cheeks. I could never look away. You're too bright. Later, Lyra stood alone at Observation Deck 7. Earth glowed in the viewport, blue and ancient, but she didn't feel small against it anymore. She felt part of it. Mira found her there, holding a tiny potted plant, a moon orchid seedling, glowing faintly in a cup. I grew it for you, the girl announced, thrusting it forward. It's your flower. Lyra knelt, her silver skin catching the starlight. She took the cup, her fingers brushing Mira's small ones. It's beautiful, she said through her translator. Like you, Mira beamed. Then, without warning, she wrapped her arms around Lyra's neck in a tight hug. Lyra froze. Humans rarely hugged Xylani, but Mira didn't let go. I love you, shiny lady, the girl whispered. Lyra's antennae lifted high, trembling slightly. Slowly, carefully, she hugged Mira back. Her silver arms, once hidden under a coat, now held the child close. She felt Mira's heartbeat against her own, felt the warmth, felt the belonging. I love you too, she whispered. The words didn't need a translator. They lived in her touch, her tears, her lifted head. As Mira ran off to show her dad the orchid, Lyra stayed at the viewport. She placed a hand against the cool glass, palm flat. Outside, the universe stretched endless and dark. But inside, her heart beat steady and sure. She wasn't a ghost. She wasn't glass. She was Lyra, silver skin, violet eyes, a soul that had finally found its home. And for the first time, she knew home wasn't a place. It was the space where love could finally land. 10 years later, the Orion's rest station didn't just survive, it thrived. And at its heart stood Lyra. Her silver skin, once a target for stares, now caught the light like polished moonstone as she walked the corridors. Her violet eyes, no longer clouded with fear, held the calm depth of a still ocean. She wore no coat. Her antennae rose high and proud, brushing the air like delicate silver willows. Children ran to her, not away. They tugged her hands, begging for stories of her lost world, their small fingers tracing the shimmer on her arms like it was magic. To them, it was. She'd built a life from the ashes, taught xenobotany to cadets from 3 star systems, raised Myra as her own daughter, now a young woman training to be a medic. And she'd created the Sanctuary Garden, a vast, glowing dome, where refugees planted seeds from their dead or distant homes. Here, Martian cacti grew beside Xylani star ferns, Earthian moss pulsed beside earth roses, all breathing the same air, all reaching for the same light. One cold morning, a new refugee shuttle docked. The airlock hissed open, revealing 2 trembling figures, a Earthian child with too many eyes, her skin mottled green and brown, and a Velnelder floating in a gravity harness, his translucent body shimmering with exhaustion. The corridor filled with onlookers, some curious, some uneasy. The old fear hung in the air, thin but sharp. Lyra saw it, felt it like a chill. She stepped forward, not as a hero, but as a welcome. She knelt to the Earthian child's level, her silver knees pressing into the metal floor. Slowly, she unclipped her translator, not to speak, but to place it gently in the child's trembling hand. The device glowed softly. You are safe, Lyra's voice chimed through the small speaker. Warm as sunlight. You are not alone. She placed her palm flat against her own chest, then over the child's small heart. And you are beautiful, she whispered, the words raw without the translator. Just as you are. The Earthian child stared. Then, slowly, she placed her many-fingered hand over Lyra's silver one. A tear, thick and green, rolled down her cheek. Behind her, the Velnelder bowed his head, a gesture of profound relief. The onlookers didn't whisper, they watched, and in their eyes, Lyra saw something new, not fear, but recognition. That evening, Elias found her in the sanctuary garden. Moon orchids glowed around them, their soft chimes filling the air. Lyra was teaching Mira's son, the first human Xylani child, born on the station, how to cradle a star fern sprout. The boy's tiny fingers, half silver, half pink, held the plant with fierce care. Elias sat beside her on the soft soil, the scent of earth and life wrapping around them like a blanket. He didn't speak. He never needed to. Lyra looked at him, her violet eyes holding the weight of years. I used to think belonging was about becoming like them, she said softly, her translator clipped back to her collar, fitting into their world. Now I see. She gestured to the garden, the Martian cacti, the Earthian moss, the boy's small hands holding alien life. Belonging is about letting the world grow around you, making space for others to bloom too. Elias nodded, placing his weathered hand over hers. You taught them that, he said. Not with words. With this, he swept his hand across the garden. You showed them that home isn't about matching, it's about mattering. Lyra's antennae lifted, trembling slightly. I never thought I'd have this, she breathed. A family, a purpose, a place where my tears don't scare children, but help them grow. She touched a moon orchid petal. It chimed like a bell. You gave me that. Elias shook his head. I just saw you, he said gently. The rest, that was all you. Your courage, your kindness, your quiet strength. He looked at the boy, now giggling as the star fern tickled his palm. You didn't just find your place here, Lyra. You redefined what human means. Later, as the station slept, a young human Bueno, older than Mira, had been approached Elias near the hydroponics bay. He tugged Elias's sleeve, eyes wide with curiosity. Mr. Elias, the boy asked, was Lyra the first alien on the station? Elias smiled, the lines around his eyes deepening like riverbeds. He knelt, his old knees creaking. No, he said softly. But she was the first one who made us remember what human really means. The boy frowned. But she's not human. She's shiny and tall. Elias placed a hand over the boy's small chest. Human isn't about skin or height, he said. It's about this. He tapped the boy's heart. It's saving someone when you're scared. It's growing gardens for strangers. It's seeing someone broken and saying, you belong. He looked toward the sanctuary garden, where Lyra stood silhouetted against the glowing vines. Lyra showed us that courage, kindness, and the strength to be different. That's the human heart, and it beats in all of us. The boy was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded, as if the universe had just clicked into place. I want a heart like that, he whispered. Elias ruffled his hair. Then you already are. Lyra watched them from the garden's edge. She didn't need to hear the words. She saw it in the boy's posture straighter now, in Elias's gentle touch, in the way the station's lights seemed warmer, kinder. She turned back to the garden. Planted here were seeds from 100 worlds, each one fragile, each one strong, each one needed, just like the beings who carried them. She knelt and pressed her palm into the soil. Cool, alive, home, above her. Earth hung in the viewport, blue, distant, beautiful, but Lyra didn't feel small against it anymore. She felt connected, like a single thread in a vast, shimmering tapestry. This was her legacy, not the garden, not the station. The quiet courage to stand tall, the gentle strength to say you belong to the lost, the unbroken belief that kindness has no shape, no color, no species. She placed her silver hand over her heart, felt it beat steady, sure, hers. And for the first time in her long, hard journey, Lyra didn't just feel she belonged. She knew she was the very ground where belonging took root.